Good morning to everybody here, all councillors here and everybody that is watching. Welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet. Getting straight into business, we've got the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We do have some apologies for absence and perhaps you would outline them.
Yes, we got apologies from Councillor Coucher and Rock.
I know that one is for illness and County Councillor is representing us at the West Midlands Combined Authority today in my place. And moving on then to disclosures of interest. Do we have anybody that wants to put a disclosure of interest onto any item that is on the agenda today? Anything that I think there is some items that in the budget. Maybe anybody's got any comment, anything that they want to declare on that one? No?
I don't think I need to declare it because I'm allowed to speak about the budget, come what may. But I mean, again, if the HVO comes into budget discussions, then I will rely on the fact that my husband is a managing director of a fuel distribution company, as in the last time. I've taken ample advice on this, but I am allowed to speak freely on anything relating to the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So the first item, yes, the Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy. To provide members with a Treasury Management Statement and Annual Investment Strategy for 24-25. There are two lengthy and comprehensive appendices, which I'm sure everyone has read with a great deal of interest and detail. The main thing to note on page 13, recommendation 1 to approve the overall borrowing limits 25 million and the short-term borrowing limit of 16 million. This is primarily, if you turn to page 31, those reflect the expected borrowing or the possible borrowing required for the MRF and refuse vehicles and possible leisure centre refurbishments. The other thing you may have noticed is that all of the tables on page 26, 27 and so forth, they're all estimates, even going back to 22, 23. Technically, they are estimates because we haven't yet had the final audit for those years. But just talking to Richard assures me that the audits, both for 22, 23 and 23, 21, 22, 22, 23, should be completed by September. But that's why, if you look at those, it does say estimated rather than final. So, any questions on that?
I have no questions. I think it's been a very thorough paper, lays out completely the position of the council and the position of the funding that has come in from government, etc. There are recommendations on page 13, and this, of course, will now go forward to Council for approval, final approval. So the recommendations are 1 to 5 on page 13. Are you going to propose those?
Yes, I would like to propose those recommendations 1 to 5 to Cabinet for approval.
And and Councillor Coles is prepared to second that. So are we all in favour?
Good.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, it's the revenue and capital budget, and this is one again that is Councillor Curtis will lead on, although I'm also named on that one as well. So that's on pages 69 to 132.
Thank you again, Leader. Just a note that looking at note 4 recommendation 4 on page 69, a note has just been circulated that there's a revised MTRFS, and I'll just read a statement that Richard has very kindly provided me with. This is a revised medium-term financial strategy following the government's confirmation of the local government finance settlement for 24-25 last week. It is unprecedented that they have moved so far from the provisional settlement to the final. Usually there is a small amount of rounding, but this year we have seen one-off additional resources in the order of £172,000 for the council. The changes relate to the Rural Services Delivery Grant, an additional 55,000, the Services Grant, an additional 55,000, the Services Grant, an additional 1,000, and a change to the 3% funding guarantee to a 4% funding guarantee, and an uplift to the core spending power to give an additional 116,000. With this additional funding has come a requirement for councils to produce a productivity plan. This includes the transformation of services to make better use of resources, to take advantage of advances in technology, and better use of data to inform decision-making and service design, and to reduce wasteful spending within systems. I'll come back to that in a second. In recognition of this requirement, this additional funding has been topped up to 200,000 and added to the Council Plan and Change Programme Fund. This will deliver the efficiencies and the productivity plan required. With this additional funding and associated allocation to the Council Plan and Change Programme, the Council's general reserve, after 5 years, now stands at 3.1 million, just over the minimum general fund balance of 3 million, as required by the Section 151 officer. As yet, we don't know from the central government what their productivity plan is, but it seems to me at least that with the change programme that we're already planning for this council, we are actually ahead of the game on that. So I think that's a very good step to take. So that's the update on the MTFS. Revised MTFS has also been circulated to everyone. So the recommendations to the council are 1 to 5 with the amended 4 on page 69. Again, I'm happy to take any questions, but there'll be a general discussion, I imagine, on the budget.
Sorry, can I just clarify on that particular item? Items 1 and 2, recommendations 1 and 2 are resolved today at this committee.
Yes.
Items
Sorry.
2, 3, 4 and 5 are recommendations to council.
Thank you, David. Thank you for that clarification.
Could I just ask one question, and maybe the officer can clarify? We were told that the spending review means that the council's only received the 1-year settlement, and this, I think, is the 6th 1-year settlement in a row. I know that there has been considerable representations made by the Local Government Association on this, because of the uncertainty that has arisen around local government funding, to go for longer term settlements. Are there any indications, given that this announcement, particularly with the productivity, etc., being included, that there will be any longer term settlements quite so close to Christmas as it did this year? Have we got any indication from government?
Chairman, thank you. So this is the 7th 1-year settlement that we've had in a row. I think it's unlikely we're going to get any further confirmation that we're going to get a multi-year settlement ahead of a general election, which, let's face it, we're planning for the autumn this year, that will be therefore ahead of the following year's financial settlement. So from that perspective, these are one-off resources. Could I also just draw members' attention to the handouts which have been distributed this morning? We have got this rather exciting form which is headed the NNDR1. That's one of the additional appendices that need to be considered and approved by the Cabinet. This is our estimate of how much business rates will be collected by the Council in the coming year. That reinforces the position in relation to the business rate retention line on the papers. You've also had circulated the results of the the budget consultation exercise. That's on this pamphlet, which has got item 5 on the front of it, so it gives the results of the exercise which were undertaken, and we have had 172 responses in that. Also included within that particular pack is the report that was made to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Friday, which included all of the alternate budget proposals coming forward from other groups, the Green Party and the Conservatives, and the result of the recommendation. I'm sure the chair of the OSC would like to talk to that report as well as part of the debates.
Would that take place now? Would Overview and Scrutiny Committee chair would like to make any comment at this point from?
All right, thank you, Mr. Buckland, and thank you, Councillor Junid. Yeah, we did look at the situation. There was a particular comment around about the one-year settlements, which are not conducive for future long-term planning. Again, it does make sense. But like you, I think I'll be holding my breath for the next few years, and if we were going to get more than a one-year settlement, I can't, imagine it'll be in the next 2 or 3 years. But I might be surprised, but I won't hold my breath. Certainly, we looked at some of the reports we spoke. And Mr. Burrell was there, and Councillor Curtis were at the meeting as well. We do consider that, it was talked about, we've got a task and finish group on the budgets, and that was chaired by Councillor Johnston, and they had some points that were raised that were fair and reasonable, but certainly I think that the whole process with money coming at last minute makes it difficult with for everybody to plan properly. I have got one small comment today. Obviously, the extra paper that's come around, obviously things were not last minute. The National Non-Domestic Rates Return paper, can it come with a magnifying glass, please? Because I was having trouble quite reading some of this. When my eyes have started getting a bit older now, I'm not 21 anymore, it was quite difficult to read, but I can understand that's only a small point there, so thank you. Small point, but...
Councillor Waller-Huggins, I believe you also wanted to speak.
Yeah, I'm just seeking also to state that I'm disappointed that we've only just got the budget consultation results today, and that, of course, and that only 172 responses were received for that. I'd also like some clarity, please, on the update that we were given about wasteful spending within systems. There was a mention of that there was going to be some scrutiny over that. Do we have any more details of that? And also, although we've brought them to Overview and Scrutiny Committee and to the budget meetings, will there be any regard to the alternative budget proposals that both the Lib Dems and the Green Party, so both the Conservatives and the Greens have brought to the table? Thank you.
I believe the Overview and Scrutiny did look at both alternative budgets. We did ask some questions, specific questions about some of the items that were in the alternative budgets. I believe in particular, there was one question that was raised about the provision that was needed for domestic abuse, and I believe we've now got figures and updated figures for that. Councillor Coles, are you able to kind of outline what the updated information that we have had?
Yes, we haven't got figures as such, but I know you certainly... Did you? Well, we do have the figures, but I think the overall feeling, I think, might be more sensible to circulate this perhaps for your convenience rather than me reading them out and not making full use of them. The funding of the past 3 years, the housing advisor, the domestic abuse specialist role, has been funded through the Domestic Abuse Act New Burdens Funding Grant from central government, because that just rolls off the tongue. And we're up to now 24-25, we've got a grant of £37,000. Now, when we spoke about it, it is going to be kept under review. But in terms of the homelessness caused by domestic violence, I don't think at the moment, and this is continually under review, for this year, we've not felt the need to put in a bid application to support any sort of shortfall in spending. And I certainly know conversation with my colleagues that homelessness is the end of a very, very long process. And that is certainly being addressed by multi-agencies as it goes along. So at the moment, you know, whilst we absolutely get your concern for such a difficult situation, at the moment we don't feel at this point in time that we need to adjust the budget to address the shortfall in that area.
Chief Executive.
It's not in relation to the domestic abuse issue at all. It was just to respond to the points in relation to the budget consultation. So on Friday, the budget consultation results were published and they were circulated by email to councillors. Of course, Cabinet are making recommendations today to Council on the 26th of February. That's when the final decisions will be made in relation to the budget. So the results of the budget consultation will be available for the 2 weeks ahead of that particular exercise. In relation to the exercise that the Budget Review Group and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have undertaken, they've looked at the proposals, they've assessed whether they are clear, achievable and financially sound. That was what happened at the OSC last week. It was then, and to be fair, we haven't received any instructions to include any of the budget proposals that came through that process within the amended schedule that's now being recommended to Council. So from that perspective, the Cabinet, unless we're hearing any otherwise, are not including any of those revised budget proposals at this stage. Of course, it's still open for opposition groups to raise amendments at Council on the 26th of February in line with the proposals which have already been discussed and gone through the budget process if they're not incorporated into the draft budget today. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. So we've got before us the, unless anybody's got any additional comments that they want to make, and bearing in mind that the consultation will be circulated around. There was also, Appendix 3 was the business consultation, we mustn't forget that as well. I chaired that. I've got Councillor Curtis who wants to come in, Councillor Wally Hoggins that wants to come in.
Thank you, Leader. And just picking up, obviously, I accept that the public consultation has only just been completed. But I think looking down page 3, where we asked for consultation on a number of proposals, I think we can be fairly satisfied. You know, no budget is going to please all people all of the time. I think we have to accept that that's realistic. And I think we are also here, the public consultation, it's not a referendum, it is a consultation. But just looking at some of the headline figures down here, the first item down here, £85,000 to maintain support for UBus, 75%. Either strongly agree or agree with that. 68% support the rural crime advisors, 63% in favour of £250,000 continued residence from the ongoing cost of living crisis. 54%, and I'm really pleased with this, you know, 54% approve of the additional £500,000 going towards the climate change carbon reduction targets. And you know, one of the more controversial elements down here, the HVO, 67% either in favour or neither in favour nor against, only 33% actually against that additional investment in reducing emissions across the district. So I think overall, I mean, there are some fairly, looking at some of the comments, they are some interesting comments individually, but looking at the percentage of approval against not approval, I think we can not be complacent by any means, but I think we can be reassured that what we are proposing in this budget, broadly speaking, chimes with residents' expectations. Thank you. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Crump, I believe you want to come in, and then we'll.
I just thought I'll come back on this. It's quite nice as well. Councillor Curtis was using the strongly agreeing and agree first two columns for the ones where we've got 75%, 30, 68%. Yeah, no problem with it. And then suddenly we come down to the 250,000 for the HVO. We then added all the first three columns, so went from being a 46% to strongly agree and agree to 67% because we're not including neither agree or disagree. So I think to be consistent, it would have been fair to say the 75% for the 85,000 for the U-bus, and when we come down to the 250,000, it was 46% either strongly agree or agree. So just to be consistent. Thank you.
Thank you, but everybody will have these when it comes to the debate at the council, and that is where a lot of the debate will be held, and it will be a debate that will be based on proper information that has been circulated around to people before then. Just to note, as I mentioned before, the business consultation meeting that was held here, it was an extremely good meeting. More than people turned up than in previous years, I believe. And I was very happy to chair that meeting with the business members of the community. So with the slight change to the can you just read out the change to the recommendation?
In relation to the recommendation 4, there's been a revised proposal, a revised medium-term financial plan circulated this morning, and therefore recommendation 4 that the proposed medium-term revenue budget detailed at Appendix 6 as amended be approved and recommended to Council.
Okay, do I have those people that, anybody would like to propose that?
Yes, thank you,
Councillor
Leader.
Curtis.
I'll propose the recommendations to Cabinet 1 and 2, and then the recommendations to Council 3, 4 and 5, as amended 4.
Okay, Councillor Coles, are you happy to second that? Thank you very much indeed. Those in favour, please. Okay, thank you very much indeed. We're moving on to the next item, which is the notice of motion on the Church Street car park, and that is on page 133. And this was a notice of motion presented to the Council on the 11th of December with a recommendation. And I'm going to say, change the recommendation slightly. The recommendation will read, we recommend that the designation of the 7 spaces marked out for Councillors, Leader and Chair of the Council are removed, and also the custom of reserving spaces for councillors at times of public meetings. However, we question the use of public money to address this, and recommend that no public money is used to address this. Just to explain, the yellow lines are beginning to wear away. We will let those wear away. I would like to see more disabled spaces, however, in the car park, and I'd like to see that addressed. And this is a personal comment from me. I do not like the idea of council taxpayers' money being used for councillors' convenience. I am therefore prepared to be able to put something into the pot to fund any changes that will be needed to be made. But I do not see that there should be any designated spaces for councillors, either during the week or at council meetings either. Thank you. So that is and since it came from the council, the notice of motion came from Councillor Wally-Huggins, do you want to address that? And are you also prepared to contribute?
What do you mean to contribute, sorry?
Towards £1,000 that it will cost to remove the spaces.
It was £1,000. I spoke to Tony Perks about it on Friday. The £1,000 is a nominal figure that's been put in there, and as Tony said, there may be talk to go into there. All you need to do is to notify all councillors and staff that there are no designated car parking points now, and everybody may park as they wish within that car park. So no, there is no budget needed for this. You just gently let the markings disappear from the car park. Find it somewhat galling that you're suggesting £1,000 is a waste of council money, when in fact you're proposing all of this green money being spent, 250,000 HVO. But, you know, we'll wait till full council before we debate that thoroughly and properly. Thank you.
Councillor Crump.
Yeah, funny enough, it wasn't on the agenda at OSC on Friday, but I think Councillor Rolfe brought it up, and we did have a little bit of debate about this, and Mr Perks gave the impression that any costs were negligible, and it could be done easily at an appropriate time, when the people were doing line markings anyway. So I don't think the cost is particularly relevant here. It's the fact that the whole relevance is that there won't be any demarcation between councillor spaces and members of the public, so and officers as well. So I think the point about the cost is tenuous, and I think it just needs to be done sooner than later. And I know with my other hat on that street linings are not best. They don't like the cold, the wet, the frost, a bit like us really. So therefore they're likely to erode quite quickly, and that gives us the opportunity to make corrective action. But I don't think it's particularly onerous to the council.
No, Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Leader. You know, obviously I support this move to extend the essentially egalitarian culture of this organisation, and I'm just wondering why that this has come up as a priority now when the previous administration have been in power for 22 years. But I'd also like to recommend that the leader and the chair's parking spaces are moved over to being disabled, just to support more the minorities. Thank you.
I certainly recommend that we should look at having more disabled parking spaces in there. I've never used the designated space. I don't see that there should be a designated spaces, but it's just that I don't like the idea of public money being used to make it to make the changes. The Chief Executive would like to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. So, could I just check the revised wording then in relation to the recommendation that you're making to Council, and just following up on some of the debate, is it therefore, if I just read what I think it is, that the...
We recommend...
Yeah, sorry, we recommend that the designation of the 7 spaces marked out for Council as leader, and are we saying therefore, whilst they're not physically removed, they're ignored at this stage, and the custom of reserving spaces for councillors is removed, because this is where we put the lollipops out. We won't put the lollipops out at this time, and therefore we will not be incurring any expenditure on this item.
Yeah, but that in any future sort of review, we look at the disabled spaces, because I believe there are insufficient number of disabled spaces in the car park at current.
Sorry, that matter wasn't covered by the direct motion, but we can capture that in the preamble to the minute, Chairman.
Okay. Are you happy with that? I will propose that. Any changes? Anybody else want to second it? Councillor Grocott, are we happy with that? Okay, thank you. Moving on. We now have the statement of community involvement, and this would normally be Councillor Coucher, but he is at the West Midlands Combined Authority as we speak. So I'm happy to take that on as lead for that. Are there any questions that are needed on that item? And we have an officer here, if required, to answer any questions on the statement of community involvement. And just to be clear, I believe that this is to do with the planning, the role of the planning role of the council, that this community statement of community involvement has been brought together.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is a revised statement of community involvement that went out to consultation at the end of last year. But essentially, yes, it sets out how the planning service will consult on planning policy documents and planning applications, essentially, and kind of other planning-related matters, and also gives guidance about local communities, how they engage on their planning matters. For example, local communities that prepare neighbourhood development plans, it sets out the regulations, legislations and guidance for how that consultation should be undertaken as well.
Thank you very much. And on page 145, for those people that would like to know more, there are some changes, and the main changes are listed, and they are listed at the top of page 145. and it's to improve the consultation with the people in the area on both but they're not major changes, I understand. But could you clarify just that there are some changes?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yes, the main reason for the consultation was to remove a lot of the COVID restrictions, because we had to do an emergency update in 2020 when COVID hit, to enable us to continue doing consultation virtually using technology rather than face-to-face, because obviously that wasn't possible at the time. So following obviously the end of COVID restrictions, we've updated, the purpose of the consultation was to update, so minor changes to take out reference to those restrictions, and also to make sure it's kept up to date with changing legislation and guidance, etc. So yeah, I think we had 24 responses to the consultation, and a number of, as you say, Chair, relatively minor updates are recommended to Council in the revised version for adoption, just to kind of clarify on matters to make it even more clearer as to how the consultation is undertaken.
Thank you. And just to say, 5.1.3 sets out that it is a duty of every council to prepare and adopt an SCI, and 7.1 outlines in conclusion, the reasons for the recommendation and the purpose of the SCI, which is how the council intends to engage with communities through the planning process in order to comply with the law on it. So that is the recommendations are on page 143. Recommendations 1, that the revised statement be adopted. I'll bring you in just a moment. I'm just reading out the recommendations. And that the delegated authority be given to the head of development in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and economic development to make minor editorial changes to the SCI should they be required. Councillor Crump, you want to come in?
Yeah, we discussed this quite a bit at overview and scrutiny, and like most councillors, we sometimes go off on a tangent. You know, sometimes a near tangent, sometimes a not so close tangent. And yeah, it's quite noticeable. I appreciate the fact that the changes to the SCI were minor. It was noticeable we'd only had 24 responses, and it was also noticeable, it was commented that we got 41 district councillors, so not even every district councillor commented. And obviously when you saw the people, there were others. And I think it created a debate about a couple of things. One about the planning process and how it impacted on some of the smaller councils that met infrequently. Some meet every 8 weeks, some meet more than that. So some discussion about the 21-day consultation period, etc. And obviously it was a statutory requirement, and there was potentially ways that the relevant documents could be reviewed in advance of that, or some preparation, just to make sure they're able to respond. And I think it was accepted by Mr. Careford that there were things that could be done differently, and potentially the consultations could be easier to access online. But I think in summary that there were potential solutions to this, that members and officers could work together to assist parish councils and residents to engage better. Obviously, we had 172 responses to the budget, and over in Scrutiny Committee, we'll be having a work plan item on about the council's public engagement, outreach and communication, particularly in the more rural settlements as well. So it was a fair debate. No particular issues with the initial report, but yeah, I think we have got to engage better and see if we can get more responses. And I think, as we acknowledged, and it was cross-party support on the fact that we wanted to have a work item on that. So yeah, just some updates from OSC. Thank you.
Yeah, I was at the back of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee when that was raised, and some good points were made about the need for flexibility, particularly for parish councils that don't meet very often, maybe bi-monthly. I think those points were taken on board, and it understood that we do need to make sure that we are consulting adequately and properly, as I say, those were things that were taken on board by the officers, I'm pretty sure at that time. But to say there was a good debate at the overview and scrutiny on this item. Okay, so we've got before us the recommendations that will now go to council. And have we got somebody that wants to propose on that one? Otherwise, I'm happy to propose. Anybody that was second? Councillor Grocott that was second. And are we in favour? Everybody in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to the next item, which is the review of the Housing Strategy Action Plan Inequality Impact Assessment. And this is Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Leader. What we have before us today are the recommendations that the Sustainable Homes, Sustainable Communities Stratford-on-Avon District Housing Strategy 21-26 be noted, that the action plan detailed within the report be agreed, and that we also note the equality impact assessment, which is new for this report. From my point of view, this is an important document. It shows the work between both the housing and the strategy portfolios, and it has some extremely good work in it and some good actions to maintain and develop as we go along, which are in support of what we wish to achieve within the district. I know Councillor Coucher was also extremely pleased with this and happy to move it forward. There are obviously some targets we've got that have had to be adjusted or need to have the target dates moved in order to accommodate changes in circumstance and what have you. Those will be monitored as we go along, and I know certainly the officers are keen to deliver what is within this report. So from my point of view, I'm happy to recommend that these three items be noted and moved.
I wonder if I could possibly ask a question. On page 188, with action 5, it does say about things like independent living, specialised housing with support, or care in accordance with identified needs. That this is there is a relationship here with the county council. The comments are made about insufficient resources at county council and district council to assess the need. And then there's also something about the new Supported Housing Regulatory Oversight Act 2023, on which government guidance is expected shortly. I just wondered whether you could, or maybe the officer could do it on your behalf, about the relationship with the county council and what the insufficient resources there are, and also what guidance is expected shortly. And Renata is here to give her
I think
expertise.
it would be infinitely a better idea to ask Renata.
For my clarification, when are we expecting the government guidance, and what is the issue with the county council, just so that I understand the resources issues?
Hello. County are preparing for an inspection, and they've also had quite a move around of staff who deal with specialised housing. They've also been hit quite badly with sick leave, so that's been the delay there. It's not been entirely county council, because at the district council, my team, I've had somebody on long-term sick leave for almost 2 years, so delay there. And then we have got the new Supported Housing Regulatory Oversight Act, which cuts across all of this. It places legal duty on the local authority. We haven't got the guidance yet, but we're expecting it. And this is particularly about, members will have seen in the press about things like exempt accommodation. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, this is the ones for people with special needs. Some of the private providers, I'm sure you've seen in the press about the bad condition of the properties and charging a load of money. So I said all that is actually related, and we will be doing this year, partly because we need to. Specialised housing, just to say, is about developments, that's purpose-built accommodation for people at the higher level of needs, so like mental health or learning disabilities. That's not to say some of those people can't manage in general needs with adequate support, but all that is really going to be cutting across the Supported Housing Act, which the government's brought in.
I'm just wondering whether this is, because there is a need for update once the government guidance comes,
Yeah.
and once we have an update on exactly where everybody else is. This is something that I'm just very keen that we should be on top of. So if at the stage when we've got that information, you could keep us keep it reviewed, that would be appreciated.
And I mean, I can even, if it doesn't come, it should be coming fairly shortly, but that's what they say.
Okay.
But I mean, even if it does come, I'll make sure I'll include a note when I do the July or the next 6 months. If it comes before, I can do you a briefing note, let you know.
Yeah, because we're talking here about a whole range of a specialised need for people with dementia and disabilities, and physical disabilities as well as mental ill health. So it's something that
It's important.
It is important, an important area. Thank you very much, Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
Yes, thank you. I'm just very concerned that there's not enough financial provision being made within your proposed budget to deal with the implications of this action plan. And within the action plan that we've got before us today, there are no financial implications that have been costed there for us to see. And by the very regard of it, we don't actually yet know what we're facing, and whether, you know, as I said, I'm just very concerned that the Lib Dem budget does not have enough provision made within it for the implications of this action plan and what it could mean for the district, and most importantly for our residents and our most vulnerable residents. Thank you.
I believe that there is something in the budget there. There's also something currently in the council, but in the change plan, we have actually indicated quite clearly that those kind of changes are the things that need to be planned for in the next 2 years. Can we perhaps, I don't know whether Renata or Annette, you've got any further comments to make on that?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just to comment really that we have put a sum of money in the budget for next year. We're very aware of the consultation exercise that's currently underway, so we don't know the outcome of that yet. And there will be a piece of work that we envisage will need to be rolled out to all local authorities. So we're thinking probably in the first instance some consultancy with a view to us then taking that forward ourselves.
Thank you. So it's already in the budget, and it's also in some of the amendments that are being put forward as well. So thank you very much indeed for that. That was a question that, you know, all my questions were asked, but I'll probably have a word with you at another stage as well. So we've got three recommendations, my apologies, there. Councillor Coles, are you prepared to propose that, because it's coming under your portfolio?
Sorry, yes. Yes, I would like to move them. There'll be a sort of unseemly scrabble while I find my page again. I do beg your pardon.
So it is the recommendations.
Yes, it is the recommendations.
Yeah, on page 185.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes, the recommendations that the strategy for 21-26 be noted, that the revised action plan be agreed, and that the equality impact assessment be noted. So that's note the report, agree the action plan, and note the equality impact assessment. I'd like to propose that.
And I will second that one. Thank you very much indeed. All those agreed? Agreed? Happy to accept that report. Thank you very much indeed. And moving on, we now have the Business Improvement District ballot, pages 217 to 242. And the Chief Executive will make an introduction here.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 points. The first point is the title and discussion within the summary. We're talking about a bid ballot here for the Business Improvement District, not a renewal. The bid boundary has changed. That's very clear within the prospectus that has been circulated. I also want to make the point that there's been conversations and correspondence received by the Council in relation to the current bid ballot. To be absolutely clear, the bid ballot will conclude on the 22nd of February, and we urge all businesses and anybody with a vote to actually cast their vote either for or against the proposals which are in the bid ballot prospectus. And today, we should concentrate ourselves on just whether the Council supports or not. It's a neutral recommendation at the moment as to whether to support or not the 10 votes that we have in relation to the bid ballot proposals. Thank you.
Yes, just to underline that, we have 10 votes on the bid, and this is to decide how we will use our 10 votes. This is not anything to do with how the bid will conduct itself or anything else. Under the legislation, the bid is any projects or services provided by the bid are in addition to services provided by local authorities. Improvements may include, but are not limited to, extra safety, security, cleansing and environmental measures, but they are in addition to what would be provided by the local authority. But that is for the bid themselves to decide on their programme of work and the way they will, the way their work will be conducted. Our decision today is about how we would use the 10 votes in that bid ballot. And so we're being asked whether we would vote in favour of using our bids in favour of continuing with the bid, against the bid, or abstaining on the bid, and then authorising the Deputy Chief Executive to vote in the Business Improvement District ballot on behalf of the Council for those 10 votes, and then the arrangements for regular liaison meetings between the portfolio holder, the head of development and representatives of the bid to be formalised with the assistance of legal services where required. So our decision today is how we will use our 10 votes. Anybody that wants to make any comment at this stage? No comments to be made? Councillor Coles.
I think, although this is a neutral recommendation, I think my feeling is that, you know, on due consideration, that we would be sensible to vote for and to support the continuing bid. It does add, it has had its difficulties, but it is an addition to what is provided in the town and is a matter for and by the businesses involved rather than a local authority. Working with them, I think, is definitely positive for businesses and residents of the district.
Indeed, we are an internationally recognised town, and lots of visitors come to the town, and we certainly need the extra services that a bid can produce. So, I say this is just about the way we will use our 10 votes, and my proposal is that we will use those 10 votes to vote for the continuation of the Business Improvement District. Do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Gist has seconded that. Anybody who wants to make any other comments? Then could we put that to the vote? Are you in favour of that? All in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving onwards, we've got issues arising from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Crump, do you have anything extra to add to the comments that you've made previously?
Yeah, just a couple. Councillor Journey, please. There was, obviously, we had the fire and rescue in, and I was at the other side of the table. There's discussion about that, and lots of, I think Councillor Gist was there taking some information down, and it was good to see that members were able to get first-hand accurate information rather than potentially having to rely on information that was being uniquely interpreted, shall we say. So it was good to get, you know, the details, etc. We had orbiting, where there was lots of discussions, a very brief presentations now from guest speakers a very short note rather than have a narrow debate item on the agenda, and 55 minutes is done with a presentation and 5 minutes on questions. It's the other way around now, so I think that's just working a lot better. I will circulate these minutes, but we've got there was obviously we raised concerns regarding the frequent recurring items, repairs. While emergency repairs were mostly good, follow-up procedures were often inadequate and left residents in different situations. There needed to be more, we felt that Orbit needed to hold their contractors more to account, because there seemed to, some of the contractors were saying the job was done and they weren't potentially being done to the appropriate standard, and therefore it then caused other problems. So we were mindful that they got it right first time. There was also we found that 21% of homes that were still not at EPC Band C, and obviously the potential issues around damp and mould. The contact email, the MP and councillor email address wasn't being operated as well as it used to be, and there was delays in getting information back. Quite a serious item around antisocial behaviour. We felt that some of the contact centre people needed more training, particularly around GDPR, and some members felt these operators were hiding behind GDPR and not actually understanding why. One example was a resident was phoning on behalf of his mother-in-law and had got permission and already sent the details that that person was able to speak on that person's behalf, and they still wouldn't accept it. And the thing was, they were only phoning up to do Orbit a favour, to tell them that they weren't going to be, the person was going to be in hospital, so they weren't going to be there for the appointment, so don't bother turning up. Oh no, we can't take this information. And surprise, surprise, they turned up and put a note in. We didn't catch you, you weren't at home. Well, we already knew that. And it just shows some, I can't think of the right word now, the word I was going to use isn't the best. So, flaws in the system, how about that? I think there was some, we'll use that phrase. There was also the issues about the community builder posts and local housing officers that they felt that still were better than the previous things. And we also felt there still needed to be more prioritisation of processes and procedures to help the elderly and most vulnerable. But yeah, there's quite a few. It was a good debate. It will be part of the task and finish group, some of the information that's coming out. And Orbit have given the offer to engage with members regarding their work programme, their repairs and upgrade programme as well. But yeah, I think it was a worthwhile exercise even to get the senior director and deputy director aware of some of the things that weren't particularly happening well. So that was that one. Bid, again, there were some concerns regarding the representation of smaller businesses and ensuring good value for money. But in overall terms, it was suggested that the continuation of the bid was better than the alternative of not having one. I've been contacted over the weekend by a couple of residents who've got some concerns which I've passed on, one of which I don't think it was a difficult one, but one I passed on to the Chief Executive, but I think that's for post-ballot rather than to do with the ballot. And I think it might be an opportunity to have the bid process in the work programme later in the year or early next year to see how things are settled down, how things are differently, what can be done in improvement. And I did hear you saying you're going to have legal involved in debates and then all sorts of different people. So I think we need to look at the process, because if these things have been raised and we don't address them, I don't think it's good for democracy. I think that's the whole point of having scrutiny, because you can't, unless, you know, there will always potentially be allegations about different things, and if you don't answer them or don't look at them, yeah, you put yourself in a vulnerable position. And the other thing, we spoke about the task and finish groups on the housing associations is going very well. That's going well. And the public houses task and finish group, we haven't got a site visit yet organised, but we're off, which I'll try, no, seriously. Again, there are some officers who are working really well with members and getting information as well. So there are some interesting things coming out of that. As part of the budget task and finish group, there was a recommendation that overviewing scrutiny had a review of the financial arrangements concerning Stratford Christmas Market 2023 to a work programme which allows for the work to be completed in good time before the 2024 market is in place. And I believe that this has come to Cabinet now in March, whether that's right or not. Oh, good. David's nodding, which is good news. So again, we'll be looking at that and then the other thing again later in the year, probably August, would be the statement of community involvement. Oh, community involvement, not necessarily just a statement of community involvement later in the year. So, and it was a long meeting, but most people stayed, which was good. So, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I've got a question to ask myself, but Councillor Grocott, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Councillor Crump. I just wanted a clarification there because I didn't make it to the end of the meeting. I didn't have that stamina on me. So I missed the conversation about the Victoria market. As far as I was aware, the conversations we're going to be having in Cabinet were to do with the arrangements and health and safety, not particularly the financial side of the Christmas market, that Victorian market. That was my understanding.
I was advised by Mr. Perks. So we can be flexible there, and we can have a discussion between now and...
Could you get some clarification on that? Because I don't think I think there's been a difference of what... Yeah. Maybe when the minutes come out, we'll be able to check that. But my question is, on the Orbit one, there is to be a major change with the director leaving. So I do hope that means that we... when we are looking both in the council but also over in scrutiny, that we are able to keep that liaison going. And basically, the reason I'm asking that is, when will we be reporting back on the task and finish group? I gave quite a lengthy report into that working group because I think my area is either the first or the second area of number of Orbit houses, and the issues that I've had with repairs but also mould, damp and mould are considerable. So I'd be very, very, and at the moment I've never been asked to come to talk to the task and finish group at all, but I'm happy to do so if required.
Yeah, and so I think that the report's back due before Easter, so there's lots of work. The questionnaire, we did that's the royal we. Annette did a lot of the work, but and Herod. Yeah, and the chair, Sarah. So there's lots of really good information. It was a really comprehensive question. It's probably one of the best questionnaires we've done for a long while, and it's a good, could say it's a good form of community involvement, couldn't we, on that one, consultation. But I think, so there's lots of stuff to go through. We've had quite a few, lots of input from the members of the task and finish group, but also from people from other councillors who've put forward processes as well. So, and what we propose to do then is the feedback, and then once the paper's out, to get Orbit back within 12 months after that as well, to say how things have changed. The other thing I forgot to mention, it's just come to me, was the out-of-hours service. This is the one where Orbit, admitted they weren't as strong, as robust as they should have been, and they've got a new out-of-hours, or will be getting a new out-of-hours provider for residents who've got something comes through the roof, water leakage or something like that, and they feel that should help the situation as well. So I forgot to mention that.
Can I bring the Chief Executive at this stage in?
Chairman, thank you. It was just in reference to the departure of Paul Richards, who presented to the committee on Friday. He's in post until the end of March. I had the pleasure just before Cabinet this morning with meeting his successor. So we're going to have a gentleman called Trevor Graham. Seems to be the only first name. So Paul Richards and now Trevor Graham, and the Chief Executive Phil Andrew. Anyway, so Trevor Graham will absolutely continue in the role that Paul has done for us in the past. Longer term, there'll be a split, though, in responsibilities, whereas Paul Richards covered both customer services and repairs. There'll be two director positions moving into the future, one for customer services and one for repairs.
I think that probably is a wise decision, but I would actually welcome an introduction to Trevor Graham at some point, because Paul Richards has been very helpful when I have had some very, very difficult issues with Orbit. So moving on from that, thank you very much indeed for the report on the overview and scrutiny. Part D is Cabinet Committees. We have nothing to report there. Part E is en bloc items. Councillor Curtis, you wanted to come in
Thank
at
you,
the stage?
yes. I appreciate I should have raised anything I wanted to speak about on items 10 or 11 at the beginning of the meeting. May I just make a very brief comment, though, on the climate change panel minutes?
They're just to be received.
Is at your discretion on this point?
Since I chair that one, it is at my discretion, so please do
Thank you very much.
And Councillor Gist as well.
Just noting the minutes, there's an awful lot of statuses ongoing, and I think I would like to see a little less ongoing and some actually targets met in there. So just a comment. Thank you for letting me make that, Leader.
Just on that one, there is actually some good news, but we can't actually announce at the moment, but there will be some good news, and I will take that point on board. Councillor Giss.
I just thought we'd all quite like to hear from Councillor Passingham regarding the fire service when they came to OSC on Friday. Is that the appropriate Part C, issues arising from OSC? Shouldn't we hear from Councillor Passingham about the fire service? Because he had to sit because Councillor Crump is not able to.
Can I just come back in on the bit about the climate change panel? Because Councillor Curtis and I were on the same page there. Because I say exactly the same point about the ongoing, and we wanted some timeline about that as well. So yeah.
Yes, the point on the fire service was, if anybody wants any questions, Councillor Crump was not able to chair that meeting. It was actually Councillor Passingham that chaired that meeting because of the interest that the part that Councillor Crump plays at Warwickshire County Council. I don't know whether there's anything you wanted to raise at that about the fire service coming to the overview and scrutiny in order to complete the report on the overview and scrutiny committee.
I have got a report here, which with a few points of concern. Shall I go through those? Yeah, right. So obviously there was the Chief Fire Officer, Ben Brooks, gave the report, and Councillor Crump, also as portfolio holder at the County Council, gave the report. And they did emphasise that they were seeking to guarantee provision of fire service response times, which at the moment can't be met because of the situation with retained fire services. But there was quite a number of concerns that were expressed. Bidford in particular has got an issue in that they've got quite good response times for their retained firefighters, but would possibly suffer with these changes, which would be putting these on Bidford on a surge status. Well, there was some concern about Stratford being left more vulnerable. The south of the county, big rural area with quite a journey time from Stratford or from Wellesbourne, would be, possibly very vulnerable. There was concern about whether there'd be, in a significant instance, whether there'd be enough appliances around, and they also the response times to those remote villages we thought was a bit optimistic, and in those remote villages the housing stock is possibly quite old and a bit very vulnerable to fire, so that was also a concern. But then people thought that with the outcry about removing these retained fire services, that maybe there should be a recruitment drive for on-call firefighters. And we wanted confirmation about cross-county cooperation. For instance, Morton in the Marsh is a lot nearer to many of the villages south of Shipston in terms of a response for fire. But obviously, the Chief Fire Officer and Councillor Crump are in a difficult position in terms of resources, and they reassured us as much as they could that they would get the resources and they would guarantee as much of the response times as they could. But there was still a certain amount of nervousness from councillors representing those areas. But yeah, thanks.
Can I say I appreciate the fact that you've given your report on what came forward with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I believe we will be doing an official response to the consultation, and I think that will come from Councillor Gist. I wasn't able to put my views forward, obviously, because I was sitting at the back. I'm not a member of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, but certainly as a representative of the town of Ulster, where we, of course, had the dreadful tragedy that occurred about 16 years ago. We have strong views about and I attended the Ulster Town Council's consultation on fire services. So I think we will be it will be something that will be discussed at council, but we will be putting in an official response. So thank you very much indeed. No, it won't be at this council, next council, but it'll be when the consultation period is finished. We'll be finalising our response to the fire service. Okay, moving on then, we've got en bloc items, Part E. These are items in this section. The reports and recommendations will be approved en bloc unless a request is made to the leader at the start of the meeting for the item to be discussed. And I have had no requests for any of those items to be discussed. So it's the Cabinet Work Programme, the Climate Change Panel, and that's the items that will be en bloc. Are you happy to accept those en bloc? Thank you. And then Part F, other matters, urgent business. I've had no notification of urgent business, so I declare this meeting